Moscow Society launches propagandist exhibit on centuries of Polish Russophobia. Have I mentioned that Polish people hate Russia and that actually if it was not for Poland and Polish people, Ukrainian people would not have existed? That's right. According to the very famous and epic interview that Tucker Carlson had with Vladimir Putin, Poland, or rather Polish people, corrupted Russians into becoming Ukrainians because the Ukrainian language is Russian that is corrupted by Polish. Okay? Polish corrupted Russian. That is what Ukrainian is, apparently. So now we are going a step further and we will be analyzing the centuries of Polish Russophobia, the irrational hatred that the Polish folk hold against poor Russian lambs, poor Russian people. Look at all these historical figures that have always just thought to themselves, oh, how I hate Russia. How much I hate Russia. I know it's irrational, but I just cannot stop hating Russia with all my heart, with all my being. I've never hated anything else in my life than Russia. Why am I talking about some distant Poles from the past? I can be talking about my own experience. Look at this flag. It represents hatred towards Russia. A propagandistic exhibition devoted to Russophobia in Poland has opened in Moscow, promoting false narratives about major historical events such as the World War II era Katyn massacre. Oh my god, Russia is going to deny the Katyn massacre. This is going to be... Did you know that the USSR and then Russia by extension tried to pin the Katyn massacre on the Nazis? Interestingly enough. Yeah, the official line for a long time was that the Katyn massacre was done by the German soldiers. Incub says maybe Russia shouldn't be that easy to hate if they didn't want to be hated. Maybe. According to the organizers, the government-linked Russian Military Historical Society, the aim of the 10 centuries of Polish Russophobia display is to explore a phenomenon it claims has become the basis of Polish political consciousness today. Yeah, trust me, I live in Poland, and the hatred of Russia is not the basis of Polish political consciousness today. Trust me when I say this, okay? Comprised of 32 panels placed along Gogolevsky Boulevard in the center of the Russian capital. The exhibit brings together erroneous and pro-Russian narratives on Polish history, justifications of Soviet policy, and Kremlin-inspired takes on current affairs. TVP World's Russian-language sister channel, Vostok, reported. On its website, the society established in 2012 following a decree by President Vladimir Putin outlined some of the baseless claims made in the exhibition, which launched on Monday. Wow. This is a very... It's Wednesday now, so it's only been a few days. It's a very fresh exhibition. Oh yeah, which brings us to this next article, by the way. Among them is an attempt to downplay the Soviet authorities' role in the Katyn massacre. You know, the main perpetrators of the massacre. The 1940 execution of some 22,000 members of the Polish military elite and intelligentsia in parts of Western Russia and Ukraine. Exhibition organizer Mikhail Myagov, quoted on the website, says there was a German trace behind the slaughter. I told you that the USSR and then by extension Russia tried to pin this on the German military. I told you so. And there you go. I find confirmation. There was a German trace behind the slaughter. In an echo of Soviet-era propaganda, which long blamed the Nazis who occupied the area when mass graves were discovered. Of course, all evidence points to the USSR. But whatever. However, historians agree that the USSR was culpable for the massacre. And we even know which people gave the orders at this point. So I have no clue what the point is of now invoking this German trace when this has been investigated. This is a closed case. We already know who did it. There's no point in talking about some German trace. That's too late for that. Meanwhile, it has been acknowledged by Russian leaders in the past. In 1992, President Boris Yeltsin gave his Polish counterpart the document signed by Joseph Stalin ordering the killing of Polish officers. Yeah, exactly. Like, it says you're not gonna be able to get away with saying that there's some German trace after all the evidence have been unearthed from the Soviet archives. And I mean, I guess this is for the Soviet public, so the Russian public, I'm sorry. This is for the Russian public, and the Russian public will just gobble up anything, I suppose. It is a very brainwashed population. So who cares if the whole thing has been disproven? Who cares if there's been an investigation? Who cares if the Russian archives themselves have contributed into very decisively pointing out the real culprit of the Katyn massacre? Who cares if, Russia feels like it can just completely change the narrative now? It's just nobody cares about the truth. A distorted view. Kov, who is a director of the Historical Society, that shows you how much historical societies are worth in Russia, attempts to portray Russia's influence on Poland as benign, lauding the development of parts of present-day Poland under the Russian Empire in the 19th century, as well as the Soviet Union's tremendous assistance to Polish forces during and after World War II. So the fact is that there's this division in Poland. Poland, it's called Poland A and Poland B. And that division can be traced to the partitions. And the part of Poland that has been under the Russian rule is the less developed, more conservative, more radical to the right part. I'm simplifying a bit, but that is roughly how it goes. And the part under the Prussian occupation is far more developed, far more progressive, and what have you. So the development under the Russian Empire is a laughable concept, to be quite honest with you. That is a laughable proposition that the parts of Poland that were under the Russian Empire were so developed. Such development. Ridiculous. Ridiculous and silly. But, it is what it is. While parts of Russian-run Poland advanced economically under imperial rule, Poles were subjected to Russification policies and revolted on several occasions, most notably in the November Uprising 1830-1831, and January Uprising 1863-1864. Well, there was also a notable difference in development between partitions, which I've highlighted a bit just now. Meanwhile, World War II was preceded by the infamous Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, in which the Soviets took control of eastern Poland, leading to the deportation of thousands of Poles to Siberia and the decimation of the country's elite. During the 1944 Warsaw Uprising, in which Polish forces revolted against Nazi rule, the fighters were abandoned by Stalin's army that awaited their defeat despite having advanced to the Vistula River. It culminated in the post-war establishment of an authoritarian communist regime in Poland loyal to Moscow. Polish sovereignty was only truly restored when the regime fell over 4 decades later. And let us not forget that the West has effectively abandoned Poland to the Soviet Union for the sake of stability, of course. And as a previous video said, and for the sake of enlisting the Soviet Union's cooperation against Japan. In promoting his exhibition, Miakkov portrays present-day Polish leaders as ungrateful to Russia. Ungrateful for... Why should Poland be grateful to Russia for? What sort of gratitude does Poland owe Russia for being occupied, for all the massacres, the special NKVD operation in which over 100,000 Polish people were killed, repaying Moscow for its generosity by making Poland one of the most anti-Russian states today? Well, you reap what you sow. You reap what you sow. Top politicians from all major parties in Poland criticized Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, with some accusing it of imperialism, of the kind seen in the Tsarist and Soviet eras, which is true. Poland is so ungrateful. Wait, let me see. Russia has falsely claimed that it did not invade Poland in 1939, issuing the denial on the 86th anniversary of the Soviet Union's invasion of Poland. Because, that all makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense that Poland should be grateful to Russia, and Russia has never invaded Poland in 1939. You know what? You know what Russia should say next? Russia should say that it has never partitioned the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Actually, there were no partitions. The Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth actually just volunteered all the territories to Russia. It's just all those lands just wanted to be Russian. It's just that is what happened. Moscow's foreign ministry posted a video to social media on Wednesday that offered its own distorted view of historical events, painting Warsaw as the aggressor in a conflict that saw Poland invaded from the west by Nazi Germany and from the east by the Soviets in September 1939. Wait, Poland was the aggressor in World War II. Poland was the aggressor. The video referred to Moscow's offensive into Poland as a military operation. This could not get any better if I cannot make this up. A special military operation in 1939 because of course there was no invasion. There is never an invasion with the USSR or Russia. There are only special military operations. Because of course, what else? Military operation. Estelle says Russia is really good at special military operations, I've noticed. Language almost identical to Russian President Vladimir Putin's take on his 2022 invasion of Ukraine, which he referred to as a special military operation. Of course, what is war if not a military operation? In reality, on September 17, 1939, approximately 500,000 Soviet troops poured over the border into Poland, backed up by almost 5,000 armored vehicles and 2,000 aircraft, leaving Poland fighting a war on two fronts against insurmountable odds. I mean, military operation. Polish occupation. The video posted by the Russian Foreign Ministry attempts to justify the Soviet invasion by calling it a liberation of Western Belarus and Ukraine, which it claims had been under Polish occupation since the end of the Polish-Soviet War. Complex ethnic tensions flared in the region after the end of World War I and the collapse of the Russian, German, Prussian, and Austro-Hungarian empires, when Poland re-emerged as a multicultural independent state after spending 123 years under the rule of its neighboring powers. Independence movements among Belarusians and Ukrainian populations also emerged around this time, but both groups were ultimately unsuccessful in establishing their own sovereign countries after Soviet advances and Poland's victory in the Polish-Soviet War and the shorter Polish-Ukrainian War. Moscow used a similar narrative to help justify its ongoing war in Ukraine, arguing that Russian-speaking population in eastern Ukraine were being persecuted. The Ukraine-Polish relations when it comes to pre-World War II Poland, that's a whole separate topic that I will have to talk about at some point because it's very complicated and Poland was not exactly a positive party in that part of history. All right. So we have done that. Beautiful. Russia is Poland's friend. Poland should be grateful, and Poland is just a bunch of ugly Russophobes. Don't be a bigot. Don't be a bigot. That is how I will end talking about this.